Yes, Aditya, welcome.
Hi, good evening, all. I heartily welcome Mr. Richie Mittal on behalf of Isha Ahmedabad chapter. So, thank you so much uh, for taking this session up.
Thank you.
Mr. Richie Mittal is going to speak about geothermal systems. He is the director of Overdrive Engineering Private Limited, a company specializing in energy efficient design, passive and engineering in air conditioning and cooling systems, indoor air quality, and geothermal for enclosed facilities. He's also does energy audit, green building, third party commissioning, and testing, adjusting, and balancing design. He is a graduate engineer from BIT Mesra and postgraduate from Delhi College of Engineering in 1984. He has a vast experience of 37 years in this industry and is also a guest lecturer at many engineering colleges, including IIT. Sir, we are happy to have you here, and I guess the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Aditi, and thank you, Ahmedabad chapter. And I think it's good to be with you all, yes, virtually. So I'm going to share my screen and just to check, my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
All right, one second. And am I audible well?
Yes, you're audible well as well.
All right, thank you, guys. So I'm Aditi. I believe I have 35 to 40 minutes, and then we have question answers. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Aditi. So we go on. So, guys, I think it is very simple, geothermal system, and I will quickly first like to brief you what is a geothermal system and how does it fit into that. I'm sure that knowing that the background of all of us here is air conditioning. So you would have heard about air cooled system, water cooled system. Now, what do we do in air cooled system? We in air cooled system we are dissipating the heat into the air, while in water cooled system we are dissipating the heat into the water. Now, what we are going to do in geothermal, we are going to dissipate the heat into the earth. So, this is a very basic of a geothermal system. And we are talking of a geothermal system for comfort application. I'm not talking of something else. So we are talking of the comfort application. Now coming back, what are the advantages of this system and how does it work? That we're going to run through it. Just to give you a little brief on the efficiency of this system. You see, when we are discharging, what we are doing in air conditioning is picking the heat from the enclosed area and throwing it out. So what we are doing in air cool, we are picking the heat from the room and throwing it in the air. Now air temperature is around 42, 45, whatever it is. So that means the refrigerant temperature has to be at least 15 to 20 degrees centigrade above this 42 temperature. So that means the compressor has to work hard to increase the refrigerant temperature to 42 plus 20, say 62 degrees centigrade. Fair enough. It consumes amount of energy. Now we come to water cool. In water cooled, we are dissipating the heat, picking the heat from the room and dissipating it in the water. Now the water temperature, we would call it around 32 degrees centigrade. Now in this case, the compressor has to work and make the temperature to 52 degree. 20 to 20 degree, as a ad hoc, I'm adding a temperature which compressor needs to bring in the refrigerant to dissipate the heat. So 15 to 22, say around 50-degree temperature. So the water cooled is little more efficient because now the compressor has not to work so hard to increase the temperature to 62. It is to work to 52. So it is very good. So that is why water cooled system is more efficient than air cooled. Now let's look at Earth. I'm going to run through the whole presentation, no doubt on that, but I just want to talk to the basic of as an air conditioning engineer. Now, the constant temperature of the Earth has a constant temperature below 6 meter, and we're going to take advantage of that. How is we going to see that? So, in case 26 degrees is the temperature of the Earth, so now we have to work at say around 15, 20 degree above. Compressor has to work to 46 degrees centigrade. So, this system becomes more efficient because the compressor has to raise the temperature of refrigeration to 46 in geothermal, for example. In water cooled, it has to go to 50, 52, and in air cooled, it has to go to 62. So the geothermal system becomes the most efficient system per se. Also, today, water has is a very, very important commodity. You know, you all know all about water. So in geothermal, we are not using water. We will see that how does it come. So geothermal is nothing new. It's a very ancient technology. In 1912, it was Swift's patent. 1945, first ground source heat operating in North America was there. 49, Canada operated ground source heat pump installation. Toronto, 1970, first European installation. So this is the first plant of geothermal in 1904. I just digged out from the history. So, guys, you would have seen this chart on a renewable energy time and again all the time. So you see that everything gets reflected, and it is the Earth which is taking in the maximum heat. Absorbed by land and ocean is 51%. So we are talking of Earth. You know how so you can see that sun energy 70%, 17% cloud, 19%, 4% absorbed, 6% is reflected, 46% is absorbed by the Earth. So Earth is like a solar battery and absorbing nearly half of the sun's energy. So we're going to use the Earth, Mother Earth. So this is what is geothermal all about. So we are trying to use Mother Earth for heat, for dissipating the heat or extracting the heat. So it is like a battery. We're going to talk about it a little later. How does it work? So I mean, you know wind energy as a renewable energy. I'm sure you all know about it, but it is subject to wind. Solar, it is subject to sun when it is up, when it is not. Earth is something which is constant, which is for 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days. So this energy in few of the countries is known as it is taken as a renewable energy, and it is a renewable energy actually. So so this is, you can see, we have wind, solar, and earth. So wind is again, I'm repeating, wind is subject to wind, solar is subject to the sun, and ground source heat pump, what we call a geothermal system, does not depend on anything. It does depend on sun, but then it depends on the energy which is stored. So this technology has many names, worldwide. Few people call it a ground source heat pumps. Few call it a ground coupled heat pumps. Few call it a geothermal heat pump. You also call it geo exchange. So the word geo is always there because geo is earth, right? So we also call it a earth energy system. We also call it a water source heat pump. This refers to used in boiler cooling tower application without direct connection to earth. But water sources are not a geothermal application actually. So water source heat pump could not be designated as a geothermal technology. It is kind of it, yes. So now coming to what is a geothermal pump, geothermal heat pump. This is basically transferring the energy to and from the earth for the purpose of either heating or cooling of the building. Like I explained to you, what are you doing? In air conditioning, we are picking the heat. In case of cooling, we are picking the heat from the room and dissipating it outside. In case of heating, we are picking up the heat from outside and putting it into the room. So this is a kind of cycle which is always happening. So geothermal pump is transferring energy to and from the earth for either heating or cooling of a building process. There are two primary energy sources. Earth is a core dominated or the surface dominated. Core dominated, if you go deeper into the earth, you may get a very high temperature which is being used to generate energy or generate power, rather, I would say. So there are a couple of geothermal systems which are being done in India where they're generating electricity out of this, which is going into the earth core. So this is how does this earth, how do you get earth's energy? So as I explained you, 50% of the solar energy is absorbed by the earth, and the temperature of the earth in any geographic condition, it depends on the location and the geographic condition and the soil condition and the ground condition. So by and large, there are studies which say that temperature ranges from 50 degree Fahrenheit to 70 degree Fahrenheit. In India, we may call it, India we would have say around 75 to 80 degree Fahrenheit. For cooling in the summer, the system reverses and expels heat from your home to the cooler earth. So that's what I explained you. It could be via the loop. We're going to explain what is the loop. Am I audible very well?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Clearly,
All
sir.
right. All right. Thank you. So this heat exchange process is not natural, but it is truly ingenious and highly efficient way to create comfortable climate in your area. While in heating, water circulating in the sealed loop, again I'm going to come to the loop. Here it is compressed to high temperature and sent to warm air. So we will discuss that. It is a pure air conditioning system, but only thing is instead of using water or air as a source, we are using earth as a source. So this is just how the system works. So if you see everything, you see a compressor, you see this is for heating application. You see a compressor, you see a fan, air handling unit. Then you see this is the thing which is what we call it as a geothermal or heat exchange, geo exchange. So if you see the what in is 61 and the out is 55, this is going into the earth. So it is a purely simple refrigeration system, air conditioning system. What we have, only difference is that heat is exchanged in the earth. So it is not a complicated system to say so. So how does it work? Like any heat pump, it simply moves the energy from one place to other. Like in a refrigerator works also on the same principle. By using the refrigeration, geothermal heat pump removes heat energy stored in the earth or the earth's groundwater and transfer it to home. So it is again I'm using the word. It is a very simple air conditioning system, and how the earth is stored, the using the stored energy in the earth, heat is extracted through liquid medium. I'm going to touch this little later on. And it's pumped in the heat pump or exchanger. There is a heat used to heat your home. In some other process is reversed. We have a reversible air conditioning system now. That's what we call it as a heat pump. You have a chiller which is with a reverse cycle. We can call it a heat pump. Overall concept. What is the overall concept of this ground source? The ground source heat pump consists of water to air or waste to water heat pump connected to series of long plastic buried pipe below the earth's surface or placed in a pond. So we're going to touch very quickly on this aspect of it. But to make you say everything we are talking about rejection or absorbing the heat is from the earth or from the pond or from the water body. These system can utilize well water also. I will show you how. And also the fluid from earth loop or well water is moved through a unit and heat pump transfers the energy. So the earth basically is a solar collector or a heat energy storage. And as you know, the air temperature may fluctuate. However, the temperature below the earth remains constant at that location that we are working. So we've done a couple of studies in India and we have found that the temperature of earth below 6 meter is quite constant and it is around 26 degrees centigrade to say so. And normally, we always say that it could be, average of dry a bed bulb also at some time. So 26 to 28-degree temperature is kind of temperature which one can look at. But there are ways of calculating what is the Earth's temperature. I will touch it little later on. So how do we look at Earth? During the heating, the Earth serves as heat supply. So it extracts the heat from the Earth. During the heating season, we need to extract the heat from the Earth. However, during the cooling season, we are giving the heat to the Earth. So Earth stores the energy. Now, one point which I would like to very specifically make you understand, you have to treat Earth as a battery. Now, in a battery, you charge and you discharge. Now, it is not possible that at all the times you will charge the battery. Or it cannot be possible that every time you discharge the battery. So, you have to charge and discharge. Same is the case with the earth. So it should not happen that you design a system where at all the time you are looking at dumping the heat or rejecting the heat in the earth. No, you cannot do that. You have to, when you are extracting the heat or you are giving the heat to the earth, you have to extract the heat out of the earth. So I have seen couple of failures of such system, which one has to be critical that I've seen some application where they have been only rejecting the heat in the earth and they are not able to give a cooling time or a breathing time to the earth. So give you an example. Suppose there is an air conditioning system and you are pumping the air into the heat into the earth continuously for 24 hours. Now you need to balance. Earth has to. Where does the heat go ultimately? It will remain in the earth. It will get extracted out from the surface of the earth, or it will get vanished. So earth is. You have to assume it is like a battery. I mean that is the success story of this. You have to imagine it as a battery. You will never fail. The concept has to be very clear. So you have to make sure that you have to charge and discharge the thing, and how we're going to take it a little forward. Now, in order to understand uh, sorry, how the geothermal, so you need to understand the basic understanding of first and second law of thermodynamics. I'm going to refresh it very quickly. Otherwise known as law of conservation of energy. Basically, you can't get more energy out of what you put in. So energy is constant. The first statement of the second law of thermodynamics is that heat energy flows from the area of high heat to a lower heat. And this process cannot be stopped. It can only be, you can increase or decrease the speed, but please understand, you cannot stop this process. If there is a delta t, the thermodynamic, the system will keep on working. So how does geothermal fits into our HVAC system? I'm sure you have learned quite a bit of it. So I'm using few words which will come to you more clearly when it shows little more pictures. So there is a earth loop is placed in the ground either horizontally or vertical. I'm going to touch on horizontally or vertically. How does it look? Then we have water and antifreeze circulated through pipe. This antifreeze we are talking about in case of heating application. Suppose you are doing geothermal in a very cold climate where there's water can freeze, so you need to have antifreeze system into place. Heat to the heat pump during the heating mode away from the heat pump. Heat transfer takes place inside the heat pump in water to refrigerant heat check-in called coax. Now, geothermal heat pumps consist of four circuits. One is the distribution circuit, we call it that distribute the conditioned air or a water solution throughout the home. So, which is you call it a air handling unit or a air distribution system. Refrigeration system is simple as you have what you have as a standard refrigeration, a sealed pressurized circuit of refrigeration, which includes compressor, expansion valve, water to refrigerant heat exchanger, air coil reversing, and all those kind of things. These are standard things. Then we have a geothermal ground loop system, which I'll show you in the picture. And so these are buried in the ground. Then we have a hot water circuit. Domestic water can be heated in a geothermal system. Call it the superheater. I'm sure you would, as air conditioning engineer, you would know all about it. I'm not touching that. So what are the components which we have to say? Sorry, I think my sharing stopped. So these are the components that we have. One is a ground loop, one is a ground loop pump. Now these ground loop or ground loop pump are something which we are going to put in the earth. I'm going to take it a little later. Then heat exchanger. It could be condenser, basically what we call it, or refrigeration circuit, a compressor, a metering device, a low side heat exchanger, which could be what you could call it a AHU or anything, low side pump or fan. If it is a process, then it is pump, or if it is, I mean, you're also using it in a radiant cooling, so you can use a pump also. Now this is you can see the slide this, so the type which is moving, you can see this area is a geothermal pass. Rest is pure air conditioning. I'm going to let you go through this slide. I mean, this is a moving slide, so you can see how things are happening. So this is a cooling mode where, and sorry, so this is a cooling mode. This is a cooling mode where you can see these things, and this is a heating mode. Now in heating mode, only thing is that this reverse valve, what you see, it's in a reverse direction. That is it. And there is nothing great in it. So we have to understand that this system, a heat pump has a reversing valve. It can work in the heating as well as in the cooling mode. So you can see, I will just repeat this slide again. So you can see how does the arrow moves. I'm sure it is very clear to all of us as air conditioning engineer how this system works. It is it is this portion, sorry, it is this portion which is the geothermal. Rest everything is absolutely same. Now, heat pump operation, each of these circuits are closed, sealed from each other, so there is no direct mixing. However, heat energy does transfer from the refrigeration to other three circuits. Refrigerant flow will change direction as you have seen from this picture, that you know how the refrigerant direction can be changed from the from this reversing valve. Now, this system has standards. There are rating and equipment performance ratings are there. Geothermal ground source heat pump are tested as per ISO standard 13256-1, which replaces former ARI 330 ground loop or ARD. So my point here is that there are equipment performance, their ratings are there. These standard uses different entering temperature for heating and cooling. The flow are rating points and ground loop heat pumps. So ISO testing criteria is there, so which shows that, and I mean, it shows the unit at part at full and part capacity operation. Suppose entering water temperature at say 15 degrees centigrade, entering water temperature for heating at 10 degrees centigrade. So, and then these are the testing criteria: unit at full capacity operation, unit at part capacity operation, like you have it in an air conditioning system, and nothing new. But my point here is that yes, there is a testing criteria. Again, we have same thing like COP or EAR for both the system. COP, I'm sure you all know, BTU output divided by BTU input for heating operation, and I mean these are all standard parameters which you already have as a standard thing. Now, what is a ground loop? You know, we spoke about loops. Now, what actually is a ground loop? So, the ground earth loop provide the infrastructure necessary to exchanging thermal energy between the earth and the building. Now, in the ground loop, there are two kind of loop. One is a closed loop. One is an open loop or a groundwater system. Now, a closed loop is basically a perpetual pipe which we are using, continuous sealed underground or submerged heat exchanger through which heat transfer fluid is circulated between the ground and pumped during the run mode. So in this case, the liquid is or the fluid is running within the heat exchanger. So the liquid is not allowed to mix with open system. So that's why we call it a closed loop. In an open or a groundwater system, it is a different system where we are using the water as a source and we are extracting or ejecting the heat in the source. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures on this. So if you see here, now we'll spend a couple of minutes here. So if you see the picture on this side, now this is a closed loop system, a closed loop ground system where we call it a horizontal closed loop ground system. Now, when I say horizontal, if you see, uh, this is a horizontal, these pipes are running horizontal on the horizontal surface, which are basically 3 to 6 meters below the earth. I'm just showing it on the top. So, the heat is rejected in this area. So the length of pipe and other things, we will see how do we do that. And now this is also a closed loop, but we call it a vertical system where we do the boring. And just to give you an idea about the boring, as a normal, it's 100 meters will give you 1 ton or 3.5 kilowatt of energy and a cooling thermal energy. So as a rule of thumb, we say that, we have to go 100 meters below the earth. But at the same time, there are so many other things which we need to check before doing so. So this is known as a ground loop vertical, where if you do not have space or a I mean ground space available like what you see here, you can go into vertical area. So we call it a ground vertical closed loop system. Then this is also again a closed loop, but in the pond, in sea or pond. I would like to brief, in 1975, I remember Dr. PC Jain, he had installed a system in Jammu and Kashmir for Dr. Farooq Abdullah for this kind of system, where they had a heat exchanger in the lake next to his house. and that system probably, I believe, a couple of years back I checked, it was still there. So this is where, in this, if you see, there is a lake where you're rejecting the heat. So what you get is a heat exchanger. These heat exchanger, there are different kind of material of construction. They are titanium based and different application based, depending on what kind of water is there. So again, this is a closed loop, but only thing is, again, you have to see what is the area of the pond or the lake, so that the heat dissipation has to be calculated, how much heat can be dissipated. But yes, this is also a closed loop, but in the water body. Now horizontal system, if you see here, in the cooling mode, the heat which is coming out from the room, from the hot, from the compressor or the air refrigeration, sorry, is coming out like this, and this is getting cooled and getting back to the heat pump. Where in vertical, the heat is coming like this, and it is getting cooled. So it is kind of a header with lot of vertical bores by which you can see the heat rejection. How does it happen? Now this is a lake loop, which I told you it's a closed loop. So you can have different kind of system in this. So these are very economical, and better system to reject the heat. Only while designing for the lake, you have to calculate how much energy can the lake take. We have to do some calculation, and there are softwares very easily available. So so if you see here that to if a pond or lake is at least 8 feet deep, lake loops can utilize the water rather than soil for heat transfer. And if you guys, I'm sure you know that, water, heat rejection in water is much, much faster than either air or the soil for that matter. So it reduces the cost. Also, in case if you have a lake, open lake, so you can draw the water from one end of the lake, or you can draw the water from the under the earth, do the pull the water out of the earth, put it in the heat exchanger or the heat pump, and throw the water in the lake. So this is, we call it an open loop. Now this is a closed loop, lake loop, and this is what call it an open. We have there is a project which has been done. I'll quickly run through the case study of something like this where we have an open loop system. Now there is another kind of open loop system where you draw the water from one bore and put the water back into the bore. Now this is very important, and this is also a very successful system. And only thing is that in case you have to do two bores, and this is being done in lot of for a smaller applications, because you can draw 2-3 tons of air conditioning from this kind of system, but you need to have two bores. So groundwater is available, and you can put back the water. So you are not consuming the water, but you are only working on the heat change. Now, how does it look like, So ground temperature, if you see the temperature, I've shown you a picture which is depth of 15 meters. The temperature will keep on varying. There is a simple thing saying that 2 degrees centigrade per 100 meter, or 1 degree per 100 feet of temperature. So this is how we go down into the earth to extract the heat, because we have to reject the heat in a vertical surface. So that is what we do. For this, sorry, I jumped. So what we need to do is, we need to, before we are designing any closed loop system with the earth as a source of heat, whether for cooling or for heating, we have to do a thermal conductivity test of the earth. We have to understand how much deep, say 100 meter we have to go, and we have to see how much heat rejection will actually happen. Because you see, there will be different kind of earth behavior. You may have different kind of rocks, you can have sand, you can have mud, all kind of things are there at different location. So we do there is a something we call it a thermal conductivity test before designing. Because as I told you, I give an example, say 100 meter of depth will give you around 3.5 or 3.8 kilowatt, or say 1 ton of air conditioning. So if you need 100 ton, for example, so you need 100 bores, and each bore you will have pipe going in. I'll show you in the pictures coming up. So but what is important is, before designing, you have to get the thermal conductivity test, which is very simple test. Yes, there are special instrument where what you do is you pump the water into the pipe and the water comes out of the pipe after rejecting the heat. Suppose you're putting the water of 20 degrees centigrade, you have to see what is the outlet temperature and how much flow. So that will give you the conductivity rate, because while you're designing the system in detail, you should have that parameter. And just to give you example to everybody, I mean, approximate cost of this test is around 2.5 to 3 lakh rupees to conduct the test to design further. So now the pictures what you see here is different kind of trenching. This is vertical boring, which I'm sure all of you are very well aware of. This is vertical boring. Now there are also trenching. There are machines available where you can do trenching. Then you have a unidirectional boring. There are companies instead of doing complete trenching, you can do 45-degree or 15-degree directional boring to put in the bore. So these are all basically for horizontal trenching, and directional boring is for horizontal, whereas vertical boring is completely for vertical boring. And so in directional boring, horizontal loop, that can be under the building or a parking area. It is very simple. I'm sure you can see the pictures here. It is a repeat of what I've shown. So there is something also known as a slinky loop system. I'll show you how. So guys, this is a closed loop system. It's a very simple system, a pipe going in and coming out. And so when you have a multiple, then you have a header, and then you have a smaller pipes. These are the bores which you see, and you can see one circuit per bore and all circuit pipe 3P pipe. So this is a simple plumbing work, I would rather say. Now this is a picture of a horizontal bore. So this pipe is going and this pipe is going. This is for a horizontal bore, or this could be similar in the vertical bore also. So this is what it is. And this is the picture I just wanted to show that we talk about geothermal as a ground source heat pump, but also this also earth air tunnel, which I'm not going to touch here, but I would like to show you something else. I have a small video which I will display for all of you, so that you can understand more better way on is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
All right. So it's on the full screen, I'm sure.
Yes, it is the full screen, sir.
All right. So I'm going to display this video, which is very simple and give you a good idea about what I have spoken in half an hour. So just to show you.
Because the Earth absorbs and stores much of the energy it receives from the sun as heat, underground temperatures remain constant at a point between 42 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, depending on where you are in the United States. A geo-exchange system can use this energy source to economically heat and cool almost any kind of building, heat water, provide refrigeration, and perform many other kinds of applications. A geo-exchange system is made up of 3 components: a heat pump, usually located inside the building where it's protected from the environment and vandalism; an underground heat exchanger to act as a heat sink to store energy in the earth when cooling, and to extract energy from the earth when heating; and a distribution system, such as air ducts or hydronic radiant floor tubing, to provide comfort control for the building space. The 2 types of heat exchangers commonly used are open loop and closed loop. A closed loop system uses a system of continuous underground pipe loops in which both ends of the pipe system are connected to the heat pump, thereby forming a sealed closed loop. Water, or a mixture of water and environmentally friendly antifreeze, circulates through the loop to transfer heat between the heat pump and the earth. In some installations, the pipes of a closed-loop system can be placed in a horizontal trench dug below the frost line. The number of pipes in each trench and the number of trenches needed will vary depending on the size of the geo-exchange system being installed and the type of soil found in the area. To minimize trenching, slinky coils, spring-like coils of polyethylene pipe, can often be used to increase the pipe surface area and thus the heat exchange per foot of trench. Another way to increase the heat exchange rate of a closed-loop system is to take advantage of the naturally higher heat transfer capability of water over soil or rock. If a stream, river, or pond of sufficient size is available, coils of heat exchanger pipe can be installed on or near the bottom to form a pond loop system. In locations where space is limited or a large heat exchanger is required, the pipes of a closed-loop geo-exchange system can be installed vertically in wells drilled into the earth. As with the horizontal and pond loop systems, the number of loops and the depth of the wells needed in a vertical closed-loop system are determined by the size of the building, system demands, the ground temperature, and other variables. Since it's not necessary for the heat exchanger to be connected to the rest of the system above ground, whichever type is installed can be placed within existing landscaping, under sidewalks, driveways, and parking lots, or even beneath the building itself. In an open-loop system, on the other hand, groundwater from an aquifer is pumped through one well and passes through the heat pump where heat is added to or extracted from it. The water is then discharged back to an aquifer or harnessed for other water management uses. Because the system's water supply and discharge are not connected underground, the loop is open. To learn more about
So you saw this video, which was, I'm sure it would be very informative. I will quickly run through a small case study on what you just saw. So this is a case study of one of the project where I was involved, and it's just an idea how it happens. So so this is for one of the projects which was for Honda factory. How did the concept came in? We found out that they are drawing you saw that we talked about open loop system, what drawing the water from one end and drawing the water from the other end. There what we did was that 1 second, sir, 1 second. Sorry guys. So what we did here was just to give you a little brief before we go on. And this was that there was a factory Honda which they were drawing a lot of water from the bore well. Now we were trying to discuss with them, and they wanted to have innovative ideas and project. So we were working with them on a geothermal system. What kind of geothermal system we install? So we found out that they are drawing water from couple of bores, and they are using that water. So what we did, so we installed, they were doing the boring. They were already one or two more bores were done there. And what we do is we installed a pure heat exchanger. So now what was happening, that this water was drawn from, they were already drawing this water. So we brought this water and put it into a header, and that header was put into the heat exchanger, from where the water which was drawn at 27 or 26 degrees centigrade, we took the heat out of, we gave the heat to the water and exchanged the heat for 5 to 6 degrees centigrade. So the water which was discharged after the use was at 31 or 32 degrees centigrade. But that was all right, because they were using it for different application. In fact, they were using this discharge water which was coming at 26 or 27 for their boiler feed. Now they got saving of 5 to 6 degrees centigrade for the boiler feed also. So it was a very simple system. So I think this technology is very, very simple. These are the ideas which I'm just trying to say. And then there was a geo system. Again, geo system is a common system. Now what happening was that there was a loop which, if you see here, there are two loops here. I mean, it is not so very clear, but one loop is a closed loop where heat is exchanged from these units and is been given to the water from this condensing compressor unit, and this area was air conditioned. So we used these units were geo. So you can see from here some pictures of such a simple system. The header was there. There were two pumps, and this is an exchanger. So closed loop exchanger. Water is coming from the bore, drawn, heat is exchanged, and the water is given for the use wherever they were using. So it is such a simple system, and then only work was piping and heat exchanger. So just to give you an idea about the cooling load, there was 68 tons, and energy consumption 8 tons by VRF was 3.24. Energy consumption 8 for geo system so energy saving per year was 1.1. So annual saving was this. So 17,000 per per year was a saving. Now this was also used for heating. It was not only for cooling. Please understand. So it was also used for heating. So for energy for heating load, which was 80 kilowatt, they were using it for 4 months with VRF for 70,000, whereas now they were using with 42. So again, they has an annual saving of this. So this is what I want to show here. That there are a lot of ways of saving the energy with the geothermal system, and it's not a very complicated system. It is a very simple system, and I would encourage all of you to please move to this technology which is being taken care of us. But we little bit, again, 2 point of caution. One is that before designing you need to go for a thermal conductivity test. Second is, please imagine earth to be as a battery where you have to charge and discharge. Just to give an example, suppose you are doing heat rejection into earth for 8 hours. Make sure that for 16 hours the earth is ideal so that it will cool down. So something like that. There are balancing, there are calculation, there are softwares available to do that. It is same thing as what we do in air conditioning system, but it is very simple to include it. And there was one project I don't want to name where we found out that again it was an aquafire system. That means they were drawing the water from the tube well, they were storing it and taking the heat out of it and putting that water back into the earth. Now there the challenge came that while they were putting the water back into the earth, the study was not done too very well to make sure that that much water which they are drawing from one end is been able to absorb the water in the other end of the earth. So that is what we call it an aquafire system, where we draw the water from one end and put it back to the other end. You have to make sure that the amount of water you are extracting from the earth and you are giving back to the earth, so that area where you are putting back the water has the capacity of absorbing the water. Otherwise you will only be able to give the water or use the water what is being discharged. So if you are, suppose you are pulling in 100 liters and you are able to only discharge 20 liters, so ultimately your system would be working on 20 liters only. So that was a failure of the system there, that they designed it for 100 liters but they were only able to discharge 20 or 30 or 40 liters. So the system became 40-50% inefficient. So these are very simple things, very easy things. Imagine it and do it. So thank you very much, and I'm ready for the questions.
Great, sir. Thank you so much. It was a learning experience for me as well. We'll just go ahead with the questions. We have a question from Mr. Gaurang Patel. He's asking, for climate of west of India, how successfully we can install in terms of feasibility considering the weather here. So
Mr. Gaurang, what I said that I'm giving you a worst condition of where you have 26-28 degree centigrade. So you can imagine, please imagine. Only thing is, I would say that imagine it to be air conditioning system where instead of discharging the heat or the cool into the air or water, you are looking at as an option of discharging into the earth. Earth could be water or it could be solid earth. So I think that will answer your question. It is feasible everywhere and anywhere. There are a lot of projects. I think there are projects which are happening in Leh where they're using it for heating. And as well as for cooling, there are different places which is happening. I gave you an example of boring water. So you have a water being used, pulled up from the bore. You can always have a simpler system. You don't need to go in for a complicated. It is a very simple thing. Yes, I hope I am able to answer your question, Gaurav.
Yes, sir.
So again, next question is again from Gaurang Bhai. He's asking what should be the depth of installation for horizontal closed loop piping installation or system, and for
So,
what
Gaurav-
tropical climate of India?
So Gaurav, that is what I told you. You have to do a thermal conductivity. Normally, the depth, what as a rule of thumb in India would be for 100 meter, you can get 1 ton. You can get around 1.2 or 1.3 tons also in 100 meter. But for that, a thermal conductivity test has to be carried out to understand how is the emissivity or conductivity of the earth actually. So this thermal conductivity test does that only. But it is feasible everywhere. I don't see it is not feasible.
Okay.
Next question is which type of piping material is used or recommended?
So these are standard manufacturer PP pipes are normally used. So these are available easily. And you have to use the good material because it should be a little bit flexible so that in geothermal we say the life of the geothermal system is 50 years at least, because these pipes will not go anywhere even if they have a little earthquake or anything. There were some storms in US where all HVAC system went away other than the geothermal system, which was still working because everything was buried in the earth. So PP pipes are available in the market now.
Okay. Perfect. So the next question is which part of India is feasible to adopt GSHP? I guess you already answered that.
No, but I'll tell you, see, Aditi, I would like to answer again that, it is, please understand, it is, I see, it is workable everywhere and anywhere. You have to only understand that what kind of condensing temperature. I mean, I see a question coming in that, humid area. Now, humid area, you have a challenge of cooling tower because the wet bulb is very high. Now, geothermal, the earth temperature there would be not more than 23, 24 degrees centigrade. But that can only be ascertained after doing a thermal conductivity test. So it is feasible. So if you have a source or a area where you're rejecting the heat at 22, 23, or say 24 degrees centigrade, I'm sure the system, HVAC system, will be very successful. Yeah.
So the next question is what challenging you are facing with operations and maintenance, including consumer satisfaction system. So along with that, I would also like to add one more question. Why is the system not that? Why don't people suggest this more often, or why don't people use it more often?
That is a question I'm not able to answer from last couple of years. That is what I have to say. It is a very simple system, sir. It is a very simple system. And, there are ground source heat certified professionals available in India. People are available. There are designers. Everybody is available. But I really don't know why people are not installing it. It is a please understand, you are rejecting heat into air or water. I'm asking you to reject the heat into the earth. So what is so great about it? There's nothing great about it. You can always try this. I don't see any challenge at all.
Next question is what software do you use for the system?
So there are paid software. So you can, Aditi, you can share my mail, or I can put in my email ID. You can write, I'll connect you. You have to buy that software. Or if you hire any consultant, they can also do that. I've sent you my email on the chat box. You can write, I will connect you to the software. There are a lot of software available for checking on that.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Mr. Vijay Pansal is asking, what is the difference between chilled beam and geothermal in terms of energy efficiency?
No, chill beam is totally different. It is geothermal. You see, chill beam is different. It's also, I mean, geothermal, when we use the geothermal, we are trying to say that we are using the earth as a source. Chill beam is kind of a radiant kind of thing, So they don't compare. They are two different things.
So the next question is, for a 2400 square feet building, what will be the approximate installation cost?
So, okay, that's a very good question. I'll give you an idea. You see, now 2400 square feet of area. Suppose your air conditioning load is 10 tons, for example. Now, you may install, just to share, there are uh, all the VRF manufacturers. They have air cooled VRF, they have water cooled VRF, they have a geothermal VRF. They don't offer it in India. Why is I can't answer that question. But they have a geothermal VRF system. So that means what? The heat is not rejected in air or water, it is rejected in the earth. And VRF system with a reversible cycle is very successful because it rejects the heat, it absorbs the heat also. So, so just to give an example, so in any air conditioning, what is the additional cost which is going to come? You are removing you are removing the cooling tower or the condenser side, and instead of that, you are adding a geothermal system. Now there is a cost if you're going on a vertical, the boring cost is around 30 to 40,000 rupees per bore, including the pipe, because pipe cost is hardly anything. So you can add 45,000 rupees per ton extra on your system. But if you do ROI, it is going to be very good. If you are spending 30-40,000 rupees extra per ton on a geothermal system and do a ROI calculation where you compare it with either air cooled, which will be very good ROI. But if you compare it with, because why are we using air cooled system? Actually, we are using air cooled system by force because we are starving for water. In geothermal system, we are not using water in a closed loop. So there are a lot of points which we need to ponder upon, and I think the answer is there.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would actually like to unmute Vijay bhai. He actually wanted some clarification.
Yes, please, Vijay.
Yeah, Vijay, I'll just unmute you. Yeah. Vijay, we can speak now.
Good evening, sir. Vijay here.
Good evening. Yeah, good
Sir,
evening,
my
Vijay.
question
Good to
is,
hear.
my question was actually not clearly answered, so I ask and request Adi to unmute me. My question was that there are chill beam system and geothermal system. Which one is the best system in terms of energy efficiency?
No, Vijay, you see, I have explained you can compare with air cooled. Your condensing temperature on air cooled is 42 degrees centigrade. You can compare it with water cooled, where your condensing temperature could be 32 degree or 36 degrees centigrade. You can do a calculation with your condensing temperature of 26 degrees centigrade. You will have the answer which is the most efficient. Am I right? Is that clear?
Yes,
And
sir.
also,
Yes, I got it.
also, all VRF manufacturers today worldwide, unfortunately not in India, I'm not aware of, they are offering VRF with air cooled, which we are using it very often. They are offering water cooled, which we are not using very often. We can use it. They are also offering geothermal. You have to ask for it, and they will give you.
Thank
And
you,
that
sir.
will be the most efficient system, actually.
Amazing. Thank you, sir. And we have a last question. Can you elaborate in detail how geothermal works in cooling by a flow diagram?
So Aditi, what you can do is you can share my presentation. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
I don't mind sharing the presentation because knowledge is to share. I'll share the presentation with you, and you can share with them. There is a flow diagram there where they can see. So just to, geothermal cooling, it's a standard air conditioning system. Only change is that the heat which is rejected from the condensing side is not in air or water, it is in earth. Rest everything is same. But I don't mind sharing the presentation, and you can go through that. No problem at all.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
I'll do that.
So I guess we're almost coming to the end of our presentation. Do we have any more questions? Sorry, I guess I missed one question. What is the minimum size of geothermal system in tons, after which it
1
is
ton.
financially
1 ton, you know.
viable?
No, I'll tell you. You see, in Oklahoma State, USA, because that is what we call it as a god of geothermal. Every house has a geothermal system of 3.5 kilowatt 1 ton. So anything is possible. Anything is possible. Even 1 ton is possible. Why not? 0.75 ton is also possible.
Thank you. And so we have a question from Niladri asking if you can share the comparison chart formal HVAC system versus the formal HVAC system and geothermal.
So I think that is a calculation which I can share some case study with her. You can send her email ID to me. I'll share, or I'll give it to you, Aditi. You can share with her. No
Definitely,
problem.
I'll do that, sir. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, then, Niladri, you can also send me your email ID so I can forward it to you. Done. Thank you so much. So I guess we are coming to the end of our session. I would like to invite Mr. Gaurang Patel, who is the President-elect for Isha Ahmedabad chapter, to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really indeed wonderful sessions. A challenging technology, I say, because the way you explain it was
Gaurang bhai, even after hearing you say challenging is not acceptable. It is the most simplest technology.
Sir, actually, by name, I am speaking not from my side. I am speaking on behalf of the audience. People seems to be like geothermal as a challenging one because it's not so common. But the way you explain, some of the videos you had provided, it seems like the boring is one of the things, and you need to think of on the condenser side basically, and you can make it simpler one. So it was quite simple to understand from the expert like you. So it was like a hard topic in terms of the audience had made me quite simpler to understand. Thank you very much, sir. I also would like to thank the audience to join for today's sessions. I would like to thank our past president Bankim Bhai to join. He is there into our attendee list today. Thank you, Bankim Bhai, for joining this DL program of the program. Actually, Deepen Bhai, who is like our president for IPA, he has joined. He was there for the full program, but right now I think he left the program because maybe some reason. So he was also present. So I would like to thank IPA as our associate society. I would like to thank our society year partner ALP for their support over the entire year. Because without that financial support from the ALP, the society financing for such a difficult time will be a challenge for us. So thank you, ALP. And thank you to all the audience. And I would like to thank Amit Bhai, our program chair, for arranging such a nice sessions. Thank you, Amit Bhai. And I know you had planned a wonderful sessions this year, so keep doing this one. The Ahmedabad chapter is like to have more and more program, a similar program from you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you, Gaurang.
Thank you so much, sir.
Amit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, sir.